Since the first dawn, man has marked the passage of time by the hour, by the day, or by the season. There is a beginning and an ending, a time to cast away the old, and a time to renew. Such is the time of the new year. Oshogatsu. December. The Japanese call it Shiwasu, the month of man running, an appropriate description of the time when life speeds up, with shopping for the perfect gift, planning family gatherings, and holiday celebrations. Christmas decorations hang overhead in a Honolulu shopping center as people look for presents. But tucked here and there are other signs of another season yet to come. New Year, Oshogatsu, as celebrated by Americans of Japanese ancestry. For the Western culture, Christmas is a special time.
Christmas is a family holiday where the most important thing is for the family to get together. There's a lot of intimacy and shared experiences. Whereas in this country, our Christmas is that way, but our New Year is just a party with drinking and having a good time. In Japan, it's the opposite. Christmas has become rather popular as a party, but it's New Year's that has the important family feeling. People want to get together and be together, restarting the new year.
So here is renewal. We've gone through the whole cycle of 4 seasons. We've gone through the whole cycle of 1 whole year. We're a year older now. We're a year closer to the end of our lives. It's time for rest. It's time for reflection. It's time for making different commitments or renewed commitments to do the New Year's better than we did the last year.
My grandmother used to say the New Year is actually the time to get together with the gods and our ancestors' spirit. She used to say, lure them in and feed them, entertain them, and keep them happy until they depart and hope they will come back next year. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem. I remember my mother used to say, we've got to clean our house from top to bottom. Otherwise, the God wouldn't descend. So we have to clean our house really very hard, and I used to hate that period. But I tell a lot of people, now I remember that the feeling when you finish cleaning the house, you know, that fresh air in the house, sparkling shoji screens and fresh tatami mat smelling like spring flowers. It's just wonderful. You can't help thinking that something wonderful will come.
But then, of course, so much of it depends upon many factors that are out of our control, and therefore New Year's becomes a time for giving us reasons for expecting that things will happen well, things will come out well, and New Year's is really a time in which we engage in all kinds of actions to give us good luck.
正月に煮豆を食えば豆になる。元日に掃除をすると福の神が出てゆく。一年の計は元旦にあり。
The removal of the collected debris of one year is more than a physical house cleaning. It is the eradication of the old, the mistakes, the regrets, and evil.
When the month of December begins, as concluding the previous year, that is the beginning of the preparation for the new year. The first of such preparation is what we call susu harai, year-end dusting. At this event, we dust off our house and the shrine, the dust that has accumulated without notice.
The priests at the Izumo Taisha Mission, a Shinto shrine in downtown Honolulu, use brooms of bamboo, revered for its green color in the winter and its flexibility. The Izumo Taisha Mission was established in Honolulu when the first Shinto priest, Reverend Katsuyoshi Miyao, was sent in 1906 to care for the immigrant worshippers. This present building was built in 1923. The shrine was rebuilt and rededicated in 1968.
Among the things done as preparation for the new year is to change the shimenawa, or sacred ropes, and to put up the kadomatsu. Shimenawa is the marker of the sacred place. Changing the shimenawa that has been used throughout the year means to cleanse the area and renew the sacred power. It also allows us to cleanse our souls to receive the new year.
The Japanese word for paper, kami, also means God. As a play on words, the white paper hanging from the shimenawa declare this a place of God.
できるだけ神様に近づくような気持ちを作るために
In order for us to go close to the God, we must begin the preparation early and live our days differently from usual. We make the preparations so that on the day of celebration, we do not have to think the worldly or vulgar thought. It's important that we receive the God properly. That's the day of abstinence. By separating our spirit from the mundane world, we are able to receive a good new year. So every year the ceremony is repeated, but it doesn't mean that the same things are done in the same way every year. Ceremonies may look the same, but the soul inside ourselves are renewed each year.
While the priests prepare their shrine, shoppers jam the Japanese-owned department store in the Honolulu shopping center. Decorated with mochi flower branches, the store offers counters filled with toys and good luck charms for the new year. In Japan, shoppers would find these things in a street market lined with small booths. They seek out the ceremonial foods for the first meal of the year. Many of these foods have special meanings, and consuming them will bring good fortune for the following year. One could have fish cakes colored in auspicious plum red and bamboo green, or cooked bamboo shoots and lotus roots. Bean cakes are offered at home altars and can imitate sea bream and cherries to please the gods. Traditionally, many of these foods would be prepared fresh by the families. However, one can now purchase ahead, making the New Year preparations a bit easier. The shoppers also come to purchase kadomatsu, pine and bamboo arrangements for their doorways. The kadomatsu's ancient beginning dates from the 11th century, when farmers and families would tie pine boughs to their gates. Called the gate pine, the kadomatsu beckons to the gods, or kami, to come to the household and rest among the needles during the New Year season. Then the kadomatsu would be burned, and the god departs, leaving behind its blessing on the family for another year. Once simple pine boughs lashed to gates, the kadomatsu can now be elaborate arrangements placed in front of businesses in hopes that good fortune will usher in good trade for the new year. Regardless of the final arrangement, kadomatsu are traditionally made from take, or bamboo of 3 uneven lengths, matsu, pine boughs, and ume, the plum branch. It is made in proportion to the gate or doorway. Called the 3 friends of winter, these plants are revered by the Japanese as they symbolize new life coming in the new year. The bamboo is prized because of its flexibility. The pine boughs are green all year long, and the plum branch is the first fruit blossom of the year. At Temari Center for Asian and Pacific Arts in Kaimuki, people gather in a class to learn how to make the traditional New Year decoration.
On the other side, the high one is in the opposite side, so they balance.
When we were young, the kind of kadomatsu we used to see was just these bamboo and these pine that you just put it together and just tie it with a string and against our doorway. That's the kind of, but this is really nice that we can see something different, more artistic.
Grace will take back what she has learned to her church school to teach a younger generation.
You read about it in class and things like that, but I thought if we can show a visual demonstration or maybe even hands-on, it will help them to, you know, continue this cultural tradition among themselves or to their future children.
Many of these students have seen kadomatsu at craft fairs or in front of local businesses, but have never made one of their own.
Every New Year's, I personally go through this, you know, kind of a spiritual cleansing time, and I just thought, you know, it would be real, I think, supportive, you know, for me to learn how to do this and sort of bless our house as well.
Yeah, if you lay 1 or 2 runs of tape around the bottom, and that'll hold the arrangement together so that it'll stand nicely.
Bud Morrison has taught the kadomatsu class for 10 years at the Temari Center.
You want to leave one inner node at the bottom so that the rope won't slide off. You also want to leave at least one open so that when you make a puka for your rope, you can reach it. Because if you leave the inner node in, you won't be able to get to it.
He now sells arrangements to local department stores for their customers and to local hotels for their lobbies.
I think most of the people take the class because they're Japanese ancestry and they really want to connect to that tradition. They want to actually, many years they've had kadomatsu in the house, you know, like Papa said have kadomatsu or Mama said have kadomatsu, but they didn't exactly know what it was, so they want to find out. They want to put their hands on it themselves.
As Morrison shows his students how to make an arrangement, he gives them a tradition for their very own.
We've been buying kadomatsu for the last 20 years or so since I've been married to my wife, and so we finally said, let's go make our own.
門松はメイドの旅の一里塚。
Waves of foreign workers populated the islands in the latter part of the 19th century as the sugar industry demanded more and more workers in its fields. The planters went to other countries to hire able-bodied men. Japan was one such country.
So the Japanese get recruited. There's a small group that comes in 1868, but the main body of immigrants start arriving in 1885 with a group that's called the kanyaku, the official contract labor groups. So that group begins to arrive in sizable numbers until by 1900, the Japanese are about 40% of the population in the territory, what becomes the territory.
When the Japanese came to work the fields, they brought their willingness to work and their families.
What happens with the Japanese that's different from, say, the Filipinos or Chinese who arrive in Hawaii to work in sugar? There are really a couple of unique things about them. One is the fact that the Japanese government mandates that a certain minimum percentage be women, and that generally was 1 out of 5. So they had a built-in core group of people who would be doing foods, dances, you know, that sort of thing that the men, as a completely male community, you would not necessarily find. That's one. The second is that they come from a country that is rapidly modernizing and militarizing. Even by the 1880s, Japan is a fairly powerful, for a third world country, it's a very powerful country. So they come with, I guess what you call a great deal of sense of national chauvinism, or a sense that they are not simply helpless. So the customs, I think, are more likely to be highly regarded and treasured and maintained.
Major holidays were celebrated in the Japanese plantation homes. Fortunately, Japanese New Year coincided with the Western New Year Day, and traditions could continue. It was a day of rest and family. The fields would have to wait until the following day.
Rocky.
Rice is basic to agricultural Japan. It means nourishment, wealth, and good fortune. At the time of the year when all good fortune is sought, it is not surprising that sweet mochi rice is intrinsic to the New Year festivities. Originally, the New Year was a celebration of spring, the beginning of the planting season, and occurred in February. In those days, Japan followed two calendars.
The government or official New Year's fell at the new moon, and 2 weeks after that was the agricultural New Year's at the time of the full moon.
Later, when the Meiji government adopted the Gregorian calendar, New Year fell on the 1st of January. The Little New Year, or Farmer's New Year, Koshogatsu, was recognized on January 15th. Although snows covered the ground, the Japanese experienced a transformation. Winter was banished, and thoughts turned to new life and planting rice.
For the Japanese people, the New Year is not really a simple seasonal marker, but more importantly, that is the psychological and physical transition from an old, polluted, dark, godless winter to a bright, hopeful spring.
Because these customs come out of a rice culture, an agricultural society in which we're beginning the cycle, and New Year's used to be around February, so it was just about the time when you begin planting the rice and you produce that whole cycle right back to the beginning. So it's a very good omen to have that rice right at the very beginning of the year.
From the New Year mochi come the makings of a special soup, ozoni, and the decorative kagami mochi for the home and business. Families will place these decorations on their cars, their cash registers, and even their computers.
Because that's the object or the machine that is most important for my profession. So all of this is to recognize the different objects and the different things that are important for one's livelihood.
Today, people make their mochi in a machine, or by microwave, or simply buy it in the store. But for a growing number of island families, tradition is honored at this time of year. As the rice grains come together, so do the extended families of Japanese Americans as they gather in the yards and driveways to pound mochi. For a few hours on the Saturday before New Year's, members of the Murakami and Araki family will share stories, eat, and make mochi. The mothers of Mrs. Shizue Kawashima and her cousin Raki Murakami were sisters. They remember how pounding mochi became a 60-year-old family tradition.
When our parents were children in Japan, their parents pound mochi. And you know, things like this, you cannot get it out of your system because it's so wonderful. So when they came to Hawaii, and there's lots of people from Japan, you know, they used to work in a sugarcane plantation, and I guess they must have pounded mochi there too. You know, and they got a, I think it was picture bride, yeah? Oh, they got married?
Your mother was a picture bride.
Yeah.
My mother was cousins.
After the Matsui sisters married, they stayed close. One way was to bring their families together to pound mochi for the new year. Murakami and Kawashima remember their first impressions.
And I just remember a little bit, but you know, we used to have a good time because then we could run all over the place. You know, we were young yet. Really enjoyed the older people pounding the mochi.
Well, there were about only 5 or 6 of us. They let us try and make the mochis and taste the mochi. And that was a very happy memory then.
Then we're doing it now, and pretty soon we will be advisors. Because all the young people who are coming up, you gotta have coaches around to teach them what's going on. Every year, they're waiting for this day. You know, this day that we want to pound mochi. And all these 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, they come around, ooh, they're happy. They're really happy.
We have 8 in our family, and they have about 7 or 8 too. And they're all grown up, and now they have their own families, so their families come and pound mochi too. It used to be just the family and just the Japanese, and then as the family grew and the next generation came up, and they have all other nationality spouses.
Chinese, Filipinos, Haoles, or Hawaiian, especially Hawaiian. Anyway, all pound mochi. Every one of them. Even the ladies pound mochi too.
Clifford Araki, brother to Shizue and cousin to Rocky, has been supervising the pounding for years.
It was almost a tradition that it be held at the home of where my mother stayed, so it was at our home that we had the mochi pounding before.
This is the day that everybody's here. According to my sister-in-law, she said there's about 40 great-grands for my mother.
Each family will bring their own rice from home after soaking it overnight. When it is the family's turn, their rice will be put into a wooden box over a hot fire to be softened by steaming. Although Daryl Kaninau is Hawaiian, he is married to Mrs. Kawashima's daughter Susie and has adopted the family tradition of mochi pounding as his own.
I'm 3/4 Hawaiian. I'm a traditionalist. I like to do things in an old-fashioned, traditional way. And one of the factors that I've done this every year is because I enjoy seeing people come together, and it's something that we need to keep the tradition going. And if I can do that by having this every year at my house and keep it going, then I know it'll never die.
Daryl has taken on the responsibility as host and keeper of the pounding tools. He repairs the mallets made from guava wood throughout the day as people smash them into the stone usu rather than into the soft rice. Once the pounding has done its work and the rice is soft and smooth, it is carried to the carport. Where the ladies wait to shape it. It is still very hot.
You have to work fast, otherwise it's going to get hard and cold, and you won't be able to lift it.
The children watch their elders work and learn, thus continuing this tradition for another generation.
We learned mainly by just observing first my grandmother when they used to do all of this, and it would be that generation that would start. And as we started, my grandmother would let us do it. She would give us pointers. Because the mochi is real hot, it'll work on your hand right here, where it starts to get red. And after a while, some of the mochi will get hot on your hand. And we used to, my sister and I, go and peel it off between batches, just go ahead and peel it off. And then we found out from my grandma, don't peel it off, because what that does is it's protecting your hand, and if you peel it off, every time you get a new batch, what you're doing is burning into your skin even more. Toward the end of the day, you've got a big blister and you can't handle the mochi any longer.
Some of the mochi will be placed on altars. Others will be filled with sweetened azuki beans for eating, and others left plain. After a full day, one important tradition concludes as the new year approaches.
Hey, who wants to eat mochi?
「正月15日のトンドで焼いた餅を食べると元気になる」。
It is now New Year's Eve. The houses and temples have been cleaned, the mochi is made, and the spirituality of the evening takes over.
Joya-e is New Year's Eve service. Traditionally, Joya-e service or New Year's Eve service is a Buddhist service.
During the service, the congregation will chant the sutra, listen to the messages, and prepare themselves for the new year.
The temple altar is decorated with special cloth, so the altar will look very elaborated. Then we have flower arrangement. We use bamboo, pine, and plum. Those three plants signify good luck, long life, and perseverance. So these plants are always used for New Year's Eve service and New Year's Day service. And we also offer mochi, rice cake, which signify essence of life.
Outside, fireworks mark midnight. Inside the Honpa Hongwanji Betsuin, the worshippers conclude their service with a solemn version of Auld Lang Syne, sung in Japanese.
New Year's Eve service is held so that we are able to eradicate or get rid of blind desires. So in the year, nobody is able to live perfectly without doing anything wrong. Therefore, Buddhists, end of the year, try to get rid of the blind desires or blind passions. So we strike temple bell 108 times. So 108 signifies a number of the evils or faults that one might have accumulated.
Thousands of miles and hours away, in the snowy countryside or crowded cities, temple bells throughout Japan also ring out the evils of the old year, purifying the new days to come. After the service, members of the congregation eat soba, a soup with buckwheat noodles to ensure good health and longevity in the new year. Everything done from midnight of the new year will be done with intention. The past evils have been dealt with. Now it is time to do only the things that will bring good luck.
In order to understand the religious significance of all of this, it's necessary to understand that so much of Japanese religion has to do with the elimination of any kind of chance occurrence. You know, chance is frightening. Chance is by nature unpredictable. Chance occurrence we can define as something that happens for no reason at all. What Japanese religion tries to do is to create reasons that will yield good events, and only good events. And we can call that good luck. And so much of Japanese religion is focused upon the making of good luck.
年越しの晩にそばを食えば運が開ける。
But the night is not yet over.
Starting the new year on the right foot, free of defilements, welcoming now a new year that is clean, that is fresh, that is new, is perfectly expressed by visiting the Shinto shrine.
As soon as midnight has struck, people line up to make their first visit of the year to Shinto shrines throughout the islands. This is called Hatsumode, the New Year's visit to the shrine. The worshiper now can express his or her gratitude and ask for protection and blessing for the new year. The shimenawa hang over the long lines of visitors. Banners with New Year greetings fly on the side. Hands are washed to purify the visitor physically and spiritually before climbing the stairs to the altar. A tug on the bell calls attention to kami, and an offering can be made. The head is bowed to receive the blessing. The priest uses a gohei, a wooden wand with special sheets of white paper to purify and bless. After the blessing, the worshippers take a cup of sake wine. In Japan, this would be toso, a rice wine with 8 kinds of medicinal herbs. Either drink is believed to destroy evil and rejuvenate good spirits. Along the stairs are booths filled with ofuda, good luck talismans for the protection of home, family, and business.
And here again, what we're doing is establishing a whole world of causes and reasons for avoiding the bad and welcoming the good.
A wooden arrow placed in the northwest corner of one's home will ward off the evils. A safety sticker will protect a car and its occupants. Small, colorful amulets, or omamori, can be worn or placed in important locations. Every year, these charms are purchased, and the old ones are burned. The Hatsumode will continue through the first 3 days of the new year.
And I suppose if there's any area of human experience that is most chancy, it's human relationships. And therefore, New Year's is a time for renewing relationships, for getting together with people in your family. There is also a very strong sense of gratitude. Whether you like your parents or not, they gave you life, they raised you, and it is time to pay your respects to them, to go to their home, to have the traditional New Year's food, to reassert the basic, fundamental importance of family relationships.
The start of a new year, you feel that you're doing something to start the New Year's right and bring back some of the traditional doings.
George Tanabe and his wife Ethel prepare foods for the traditional New Year's breakfast for their family. Featured dish is ozoni. Mr. Tanabe's father immigrated from Japan in the late 1890s to work in the sugar fields. Later, he opened a hardware store. It was Mr. Tanabe's father who taught him how to make the special soup.
In the Japanese family, the parents teach their sons and daughters,
Mrs. Tanabe's father also came from Japan to farm on Oahu. Ethel met George when she worked as a hairdresser across the street from his father's hardware store. The soup has a broth base to which Mr. Tanabe adds vegetables and later mochi.
The mochi is very sticky. They teach you to be tenacious, don't give up.
My mother is very quick to point out, of course, that it is she, the night before New Year's Eve, who has spent a great deal of time chopping the vegetables, getting everything ready. Nevertheless, he is the cook, and he is the one who puts the ingredients into the pot.
Other special foods await on the table.
Every New Year, this is what I'm always doing, the same thing, Yeah, just so simple, very simple food that I prepare. This is umani, we call it, and there's bamboo shoots, carrots, and kombu, all that mixed up, and then we just put in sugar and shoyu for aji, And this is called morimono. And then this is the sweet potato tempura. And then this is ring sausage, And this is chikuwa with the, I stuffed in the cucumber into the hole there, And that one is a sausage, And this is a black beans, which they say every year, the first day, we have to eat the black beans to be healthy and,
Their son, George Jr., and his wife, Willa, arrive with their son, Gen, and a visitor from the mainland. They pass by the kadomatsu and the kagami mochi set on the family car. George's father used to put one on the cash register in the hardware store. As this is a day of tradition, even the entrance of George's family into his father's home is prescribed by his mother.
Men have preference over women, and age has preference over youth. And so I go in first as the head of my family, and then the question becomes who follows? Is it my wife, who is older than my son, or is it my son, who is male?
Happy New
My
Year.
mother has determined that in this case, gender has precedence over age, and therefore my son should enter second, and my wife enters last.
Okay. All right, so we should go offer incense at the Butsudan, and then we'll come back.
Before we go to the kitchen to sit down and eat, we must go and visit the Buddhist altar to offer incense and to say a little prayer to all of those members of the family who have passed away. It's not that you're worshiping the ancestors as if they're somehow deities. It really is a matter of gratitude that because of them, we are here now.
At the table, the order of the family's age and gender is again observed as the sake and ozoni are served.
Very few families, or very few people that I've asked, say that in their families the men cook. But in my family, the men cook. Normally we think of tradition as something which we inherit from someone else, or which is widely practiced by other people. If it's just something that you do yourself, can it be a tradition, or is that just something that you happen to do by yourself? My son, therefore, has come to the conclusion that we can define tradition, at least in our family, as being anything that you've done for 2 years in a row. And in a certain sense, it's the creation of a fixed order, the elimination of any kind of ambiguity as to what it is that we should do. We know exactly what we should do.
For an outsider at first, it's of course very strange and awkward because as a sort of ordinary West Coast haole, all we did at New Year's was sometimes have a party and then make all these resolutions. And so to see New Year's being celebrated so carefully and with so many complicated rituals seemed to me rather surprising.
And the way how things should be, of course, is sometimes arbitrarily defined, but nevertheless, the important point is that it's defined. Nothing is haphazard, nothing is left to chance. It is all established.
I didn't have that much trouble, but it is somewhat disturbing to know that you're participating, you're sort of reaffirming the family, but you're reaffirming a traditional sense of the family. So the grandfather drinks the sake first, and all the men, and then all the women. And of course, as the daughter-in-law, I'm always the last one to drink sake. And I suppose as a modern educated woman, you should say, why am I doing this? Shouldn't I be a feminist at this point? But I think that illusions are very important, and what you have working here is this illusion of a long, uninterrupted history and the emphasis on the fact that the family is so important. And because I believe the family is very important, I'm willing on that day to drink sake last.
Did they ever do nanakusa? The seventh day, have the rice gruel and then the 7 herbs?
Mm-hmm.
They used to do that?
They used to up to the top of the wall.
Oh.
Then after that, they during the war, everything Japanese was prohibited. So post-war, they didn't go back.
They didn't go back.
Anybody care for more mochi?
No.
I think we're fine. I'm modern and American enough to believe that race should not be a consideration, that ethnicity should not be a consideration in what's important for my life or my participation in this community. And what all of this is doing, the pounding of the mochi, the ozoni, the setting it, going through all of these rituals, offering incense to the ancestors, is simply a recognition of a very simple fact, namely that I am Japanese American. And that gives me definition, that gives me my place, and that gives me a point of view, and that gives me a platform on which I stand and from which I move out. And New Year's is the perfect time to do this because it allows me to move forward, having reminded myself of where I've come from, who I've come from, the people who have made me who I am, quite literally, quite physically, made me who I am. And once a year is not bad to stop and to remind ourselves that we are who we are.
During the next few days, other ceremonies and services will take place, again emphasizing the importance of beginning anew while reasserting old traditions. The first tea ceremony of the year is performed with great care.
「元日の朝、お茶に梅干しを入れて飲むと、一年中災難を免れる。」
年の新しき月の今日の良き日にホノルルアカデミーオブ
Several days later, Reverend Daya Amano conducts a Shinto ceremony on the steps of the Honolulu Academy of Arts to bless a new exhibition and a culmination of years of study and collection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the exhibition and Happy New Year.
For many local residents of Japanese ancestry, the exhibition would be like looking into a mirror and recognizing the roots of something familiar. Reiko Mochinaga Brandon grew up in a traditional Japanese household. As the curator of textiles at the Honolulu Academy, she has staged several important exhibitions at the Academy. Barbara Stefan was born in Illinois. Her interest in Japan began in the mid-1960s when she began studying Japanese crafts and the Japanese language. Friends for 10 years, Reiko and Barbara have created a major exhibition celebrating the traditions and arts of New Year as it is still recognized in Japan.
This whole thing began with one simple phone call from Barbara about 5 years ago. I still remember one afternoon she called me and she said, "Are you interested in doing an exhibition of shimenoa sacred ropes?" And I thought about it for 5 seconds and innocently said, yes.
One phone call became an odyssey. For the following 5 years, they visited shrines, museums, and country festivals every New Year.
There are two very contrasting sides of the Japanese New Year. One side is religious, very serious, quiet, intimately private. This is a time of self-reflection. The energy sinks inward. The other side is hedonistic, bright, hopeful, fun-seeking. The energy bursts outside, and this is a time to go out and have fun. We divided the exhibition space into 3 major areas. The first area, or first setting, is a quiet shrine setting. Very realistically built 2 shrines convey the particular atmosphere, the Shinto religion.
Because shrine going is actually the most popular activity during the first 3 days of the year. There are also examples of the special arrows that you would purchase and take home as talisman to protect the home, and the ema, the wooden plaques on which you write your wishes for the new year or your hopes of something good that will happen.
Surrounding the shrine are the shimenawa, the sacred ropes. They are traditionally hung in front of the house during the new year.
Basically, you see them in Japanese culture and in other settings because they're markers between the ordinary human world and the sacred world. So you'll see them in front of shrines or around a tree where there's a sacred presence.
The most notable shimenawa hangs overhead. Made from rice straw, the beautifully crafted rope comes from the Izumo Grand Shrine in western Japan. 14 feet long, it weighs about 1 ton. After the exhibition, it will be installed at the Izumo Shrine in Honolulu.
The second setting is domestic.
The country home setting reflects the agricultural origins of the Japanese New Year, once associated with the beginning of spring. Certain New Year items still represent farmers' wishes for productivity.
As you move into this explosion of color at the year-end market, you come across, for one thing, these wonderful red daruma, which people would buy at the end of the year and paint in a single eye to signify some aspiration, and paint in the second eye if their wish came true. All these would be then returned to a shrine at the end of the year for burning. This is all ephemeral.
Toys made by artisans throughout Japan delight the child in all. And finally, the spectacular kumade. These bamboo rakes are covered with symbols of prosperity, wealth, and good fortune.
In conjunction with this major show, right at the next door is another exhibition, Essences, a contemporary view of the New Year. This show features 4 young women from Kyoto. This show was organized by the Mu Gallery, and these 4 young women tried to express the spirit of the Japanese New Year in contemporary context.
One highlight of the exhibition was to stage a 2-day New Year's festival with crafts and entertainment, much like the ones found in the country towns of Japan.
With the festival, we want people to have a chance to see some of the things that they might be able to see in Japan. Now, I think even Japanese might be surprised with some of the things because you would have to travel or go to rather isolated areas to see some of the craftsmen who are presenting here.
For 2 days, the Academy turned into a festival featuring master craftsmen from Japan. Self-taught, Sakuraba Yoshizo will take 2 days to complete a kite. Quickly, he outlines the design in black ink. And then fills in with brilliant colors. He has been making kites for 33 years. He chooses to depict fight scenes, believing that the vigor and power in these designs will propel the kite to fly high. In the days when the new year was linked to the advent of spring, Japanese farmers made wooden ornaments to decorate their homes. Important to a farming family, large and beautiful wooden flowers would be made as a prayer to entice good crops and profitable harvests. Sakaue Akio has been making wooden ornaments for 25 years, having learned it from his father. Today, in the region where Mr. Sakaue lives, the major New Year's is celebrated with ornaments made of pine and straw. The Little New Year is distinguished with decorations of silk cocoons and shaven flowers. Then they will be burned in a special ceremony in early February. One popular thing to do at New Year is to purchase ema, a votive plaque at a temple or shrine. On the back, people will write their wish for the new year, such as acceptance into a university, luck in love, success in business, or even a better golf score. The plaque is placed where the message will do the most good. Like many other Japanese craftsmen, Tonomura Eiichi paints ema because his father did. He believes that by painting ema, he will continue to nurture the traditions that the Japanese still cherish. Mr. Hashimoto Hiroji makes papier-mâché masks and dolls using kabuki figures and lucky characters such as the god of wealth, the god of good fortune, and the Daruma. The molds are 100 to 200 years old and carved by hand and passed on from father to son. His family has made papier-mâché mask items for 300 years. Mr. Hashimoto is the 17th generation to carry on this craft and is teaching his young son at home. Mr. Hashimoto treats the audience to an impromptu dance. Local musicians join in to provide all-day entertainment in the center courtyard. They are joined by Terasawa Masaji, a one-man band who delights the audience by carving out animals out of soft candy. Over in the Academy Art Center, children paint, glue, and create their own New Year handiwork.
It starts with a kind of slow, powerful beat, and gradually it picks up the rhythm, and at the end, bam, like a big drum, explodes with hundreds of colors and forms and lines.
One of the important things that cultures and traditions do is insist upon repetition, that we do it because we've always done it. And if you don't do it, then something is being lost. And young people very often question, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to drink the sake? Why do we have to make the ozoni? Why do we have to pound the mochi like this? Wouldn't it be easy to just buy a machine? Or wouldn't it be easy to just buy the mochi? Why do we go through this? And the answer very often is, I don't know. I don't know why we do this, except that we did it last year and the year before. Traditions remind us of something that is very old, something that we've done. Maybe we don't even know why we've done it, but it's simply important to keep doing it in that way. That's an important side of ritual and tradition. And at the same time, it is also important to invent and to create new traditions or to modify old traditions and to do things that have never been done before. And in this fashion, traditions continue to survive, they continue to live, even though they've been brought over to a very faraway place in a very different culture.
From the dark of midnight, time moves away from the debris of the former year to the bright new dawn with the wishes of a new year with all of its possibilities. It is time for renewal, for physical and spiritual transformation. It is Oshogatsu, Japanese New Year.